Christmas had always been a time of joy in our family, but this year it felt like walking into a trap. I arrived at the party, expecting laughter, warmth, maybe even a little celebration for the effort I had put into my life over the past year. Instead, my eyes locked on my sister, grinning ear to ear as she was handed the keys to a brand new $100,000 Tesla. Gasps and applause filled the room, and for a moment, I froze. Then I looked at my own gift, a tiny piggy bank and $10. That was it. My heart sank, a mix of shock, hurt, and disbelief consuming me. I had worked hard all year, saved, sacrificed, yet the recognition, the reward, the simple acknowledgement of my effort, none of it came my way. My parents laughed as if this imbalance was a joke. My sister's smug smile felt like salt in the wound. It wasn't just about the gifts. It was the message behind them. I realized that no matter what I did, nothing I earned or achieved seemed to matter in their eyes. My sister was always the favorite, the shining star, while I was quietly overlooked, minimized, made small. The unfairness of it all was suffocating. I tried to hold my composure, to smile and join the cheer, but inside, a fire had ignited. I refused to let this humiliation define me. I couldn't control their behavior, but I could control what came next, my response, my growth, my destiny. If you were in my place, what would you do? Comment below, and don't forget to subscribe. As I stared at my piggy bank and the meager $10, a determination formed in my mind. I would not stay in this shadow any longer. I would rise quietly but surely and show them, and maybe even myself, that I was worth more than their favoritism and material comparisons. And in that moment, I knew this Christmas was just the beginning of a reckoning they didn't even see coming. After that Christmas, I couldn't shake the humiliation. My sister's grin, the Tesla keys, my tiny $10 gift, they replayed in my mind over and over. It wasn't just a gift. It was the symbol of everything I had endured. All my hard work, sacrifices, late nights, and achievements were dismissed as if they meant nothing. My parents' favoritism had always been subtle, but now it was glaring, undeniable, and painfully public. At first, I felt a mixture of anger and sadness. I questioned myself, wondering if I had done something wrong, if I was missing something that made my sister always the preferred one. But deep down, I knew the truth. It wasn't me. It was them. Their toxic need to elevate her while diminishing me, their way of maintaining control and superiority. And now, with the world watching at the Christmas party, they had cemented that pattern in public. I realized that continuing to feel sorry for myself wouldn't change anything. So I made a silent promise. I would rise above this, and I would do it quietly without anyone expecting it. I focused on my work, pouring energy into my career, skills, and savings. Every insult, every sideways comment about my small gifts or lesser achievements became fuel. I learned to channel hurt into motivation. Months passed. I took online courses to improve my skills, worked overtime to build a cushion of financial independence, and slowly, methodically began reshaping my life. My confidence, which had been chipped away by years of favoritism and criticism, started to return. I realized my worth wasn't defined by their gifts or approval. It was something I earned for myself every single day. Meanwhile, the family dynamic continued to reveal its cracks. My parents, oblivious to my silent transformation, kept underestimating me. My sister continued her smug behavior, flaunting her Tesla and lifestyle in subtle ways, trying to provoke jealousy or guilt. But I stayed calm, observing, learning, waiting. I knew the time would come when the imbalance of power would shift. Then came the first opportunity. A casual gathering with family friends gave me the chance to subtly showcase my progress. I arrived confident, well-dressed, calm, and collected. I shared achievements I had been quietly working on, projects completed, recognition earned, and financial milestones reached. Their faces shifted from smug superiority to surprise, then discomfort. The whispers began. My sister, who had thrived on being the center of admiration, suddenly found herself uncomfortably in the background. The real turning point came when I took one small, deliberate action. I shared parts of my journey, my hard work, sacrifices, and growth with a wider circle online and among friends who knew the truth. The recognition I had been denied at home suddenly arrived, subtly but unmistakably. My parents and sister began to notice, first in quiet concern, then in obvious panic. The dynamic had shifted. I was no longer invisible, no longer the overlooked sibling. Through it all, I never let anger dictate my actions. I stayed measured, calm, and strategic. Every move was about reclaiming my power, asserting my independence, and proving my worth, not for revenge, but to assert control over my own life. And as the months passed, I realized the biggest victory wasn't in proving them wrong. It was in proving to myself that I could rise above unfairness, favoritism, and manipulation. By the time the next Christmas rolled around, I had become a force they could no longer ignore. I had money in the bank, skills that impressed colleagues and friends, and confidence that radiated in every interaction. My parents and sister could still try to belittle me, but it no longer affected me. Their power over me had vanished. I had built my own world, one where I controlled my value, my success, and my happiness. And just as quietly as I had built my new life, I began dropping small hints, letting them see the results of my efforts without confrontation, flashes of my achievements, successes, and independence. The Tesla might have turned heads that Christmas, but by now, my growth was undeniable. They realized too late that the $10 piggy bank hadn't been a symbol of weakness. It had been the spark for the fire that they could no longer extinguish. The following Christmas, I returned to the family gathering, but this time I wasn't the overlooked sibling. I walked in with calm confidence, a presence that immediately shifted the energy in the room. My parents glanced up, their eyes widening slightly. My sister, who had once worn her Tesla like a crown, looked uncomfortable, a flicker of unease crossing her face. I didn't flaunt my success. I didn't shout or demand recognition. Instead, I let my demeanor speak for itself, calm, collected, and undeniably confident. I casually shared updates about my projects, achievements, and growth over the past year. The room grew quiet. My parents shifted in their seats, realizing that the sibling they had ignored and underestimated had transformed into someone they could no longer control. My sister, caught off guard, tried to maintain her smugness, but it faltered under the weight of my presence. When they attempted to justify their past favoritism, I listened silently. I didn't need to argue or defend myself. The point had been made through my actions. No words could erase the truth. They had underestimated me for years, and now the balance had shifted irrevocably. I set clear boundaries. No more belittling, no more favoritism, no more manipulation. I had earned my respect and independence, and I would not surrender it. Finally, I stepped away from the spotlight, leaving them to process the reality of my growth. Outside, friends and supporters who had witnessed my journey waited with encouragement. I realized that the biggest gift wasn't wealth or recognition. It was freedom and self-worth. Walking into the crisp winter air, I felt a lightness I had never known before.